Welcome, dear students. Today we are going to discuss neurohormones and neurosecretions. In today's deliberation, we shall try to understand the concept of chemical messenger. We shall also get a brief introduction about neurosecretions, followed by discussing neurohormones. Then we shall try to briefly outline the different types of neurohormones, with antidiuretic hormone abbreviated as ADH and oxytocin. And finally, we shall describe the various types of neurohormones. To begin with, let's first have a look at how the chemical messengers maintain homeostasis of our body. The multiple activities of the cells, tissues, and organs of the body are coordinated by the interplay of several types of chemical messenger systems. Number first, neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are released by axon terminals of neurons into the synaptic junctions and act locally to control nerve cell functions. Number second, endocrine hormones. Endocrine hormones are released by glands or specialized cells into the circulating blood and influence the function of cells at another location in the body. Number third, neuroendocrine hormones. Neuroendocrine hormones are secreted by neurons into the circulating blood and influence the function of cells at another location in the body. Number 4, paracrines. Paracrines are secreted by cells into the extracellular fluid and affect neighboring cells of different type. Number 5, autocrines. Autocrines are secreted by cells into the extracellular fluid and affect the function of the same cells that produced them by binding to cell surface receptors. Number 6, cytokines. Cytokines are peptides secreted by cells into the extracellular fluid and can function as autocrines, paracrines, or endocrine hormones. Examples of cytokines include the interleukins and other lymphokines that are secreted by helper cells and act on the other cells of the immune system. Cytokine hormone, for example, leptin, produced by adipocytes, are sometimes called adipokines. In today's lecture, we will be talking about neurosecretion and neurohormones. Let's first have a look at neurosecretions. Neurosecretion is the storage, synthesis, and release of hormones from neurons. These neurohormones produced by neurosecretory cells are normally secreted from nerve cells in the brain that then circulate into the blood. These neurohormones are similar to non-neural endocrine cells and glands in that they also regulate both endocrine and non-endocrine cells. Neurosecretion cells synthesize and package their product in vesicles and exocytose them at axon endings just as normal neurons do, but release their product farther from their target than normal neurons, which release their neurotransmitters short distance at synapses, typically releasing their neurohormones into the circulatory system to reach their distinct targets. In 1928, Ernest Scarer hypothesized that neurosecretory neurons in the hypothalamus of teleost fish had secretory activity similar to that of endocrine gland cells. As more became known about neurosecretory cells, the difference between the action of nerve communication and endocrine hormone release become less clear. Like the average neuron, these cells conduct electrical impulse along the axon, but unlike these neurons, neurosecretion produces neurohormones that are released into the body's circulation. Combining the properties of the nervous and endocrine, these cells have the capacity to affect nerves through chemical messengers. Let us have a look at neurohormones. The neuroendocrine cells located in the hypothalamus have axons that terminate in the posterior pituitary gland and median eminence and secrete several neurohormones. Neurohormones are chemical messenger molecules that are released by neurons but enter the bloodstream where they travel to distinct target sites within the body. Therefore, neurohormones share characteristics with both neurotransmitters and hormones. Similar to neurotransmitters, neurohormones are released by neurons and travel in the bloodstream, include antidiuretic hormone abbreviated as ADH, oxytocin, and hypophysiotropic hormones, which control the secretion of pituitary hormones. We will now shed light on the different types of neurohormones. First, let us have a look at the hormones of neurohypophysis. The neurohypophysis secretes two hormones, antidiuretic hormone and oxytocin. Now, first we will be talking about antidiuretic hormone. Antidiuretic hormone is made by special nerve cells found in an area at the base of the brain known as hypothalamus. The nerve cells transport the hormone down their nerve fibers called axons to the pituitary gland where the hormone is released into the bloodstream. Antidiuretic hormone helps to control blood pressure by acting on the kidneys and the blood vessels. Its most important role is to conserve the fluid volume of our body by reducing the amount of water passed out in the urine. It does this by allowing water in the urine to be taken back into the body in a specific area of the kidney. Thus, more water returns to the bloodstream, urine concentration rises, and water loss is reduced. Higher concentrations of antidiuretic hormone cause blood vessels to constrict, become narrower, and this increases blood pressure. The release of antidiuretic hormone from the pituitary gland into the bloodstream is controlled by a number of factors. A decrease in blood volume or low blood pressure which occurs during dehydration or a hemorrhage is detected by sensors or receptors in the heart and large blood vessels. These stimulate antidiuretic hormone release. Secretion of antidiuretic hormone also occurs if the concentration of salts in the bloodstream increases, for example, as a result of not drinking enough water on a hot day. This is detected by special nerve cells in the hypothalamus which stimulate antidiuretic hormone release from the pituitary. If the concentration of salts reaches abnormally low levels, this condition is called hyponatremia. Antidiuretic hormone is also released by thirst, nausea, vomiting, and pain, and acts to keep up the volume of fluid in the bloodstream at times of stress or injury. Alcohol prevents antidiuretic hormone release, which causes an increase in urine production and dehydration. Now let us have a look at oxytocin. Oxytocin is a hormone that acts on organs in the body, including breast and uterus, and acts as a chemical messenger in the brain, controlling key aspects of the reproductive system, including childbirth and lactation, and aspects of human behavior. Oxytocin is produced in the hypothalamus and is secreted into the bloodstream by the posterior pituitary gland. Secretion depends on electrical activity of neurons in the hypothalamus. It is released into the blood when these cells are excited. The two main actions of oxytocin in the body are contraction of the womb or uterus during childbirth and lactation. Oxytocin stimulates the uterine muscles to contract and also increases production of prostaglandins, which increase the contractions further. Manufactured oxytocin is sometimes given to induce labor if it has not started naturally, or it can be used to strengthen contractions to aid childbirth. In addition, this manufactured oxytocin is often given to speed up delivery of the placenta and reduce the risk of heavy bleeding by contracting the uterus. During breastfeeding, oxytocin promotes the movement of milk into the breast, allowing it to be excreted by the nipple. Oxytocin is also present in men, playing a role in sperm movement and production of testosterone by the testes. More recently, oxytocin has been suggested to be an important player in social behavior. In the brain, oxytocin acts as a chemical messenger and has been shown to be important in human behaviors, including sexual arousal, recognition, trust, anxiety, and mother-infant bonding. As a result, oxytocin has been called the love hormone or cuddle chemical. Now let's have a look at releasing hormones. These are also known as hypophysiotropic or hypothalamic hormones and synthesized by different kinds of specialized neurons in the hypothalamus. These are transported along neuronal axons to their axon terminals, forming the bulk of the median eminence, where they are stored and released into the hypophyseal portal system. They then rapidly reach the anterior pituitary, where they exert their hormonal action. Hypophysiotropic hormones include thyrotropin releasing hormone, corticotropin releasing hormone, growth hormone releasing hormone, somatostatin, gonadotropin releasing hormone, dopamine, and neurotensin. Now let us have a look at thyrotropin releasing hormone. It is one of the smallest hormones in the body, consisting of a miniature chain of just 3 amino acids building blocks. It is made by a cluster of nerve cells in the hypothalamus, an area at the base of the brain, just above the pituitary gland. This nerve cell cluster is known as the paraventricular nucleus. The nerve fibers that come out of it carry the thyrotropin releasing hormone and release it into the blood surrounding the pituitary gland, where it has its most important action. This is to regulate the formation and secretion of thyroid stimulating hormone in the pituitary gland, which in turn regulates the production of thyroid hormones in the thyroid gland. Thyrotropin releasing hormone is very short lived, lasting for a matter of 2 minutes and traveling less than an inch in the bloodstream to the pituitary gland before it is broken down. Secretion of thyrotropin releasing hormone by hypothalamus can also stimulate the release of another hormone from the pituitary gland called prolactin. Apart from its role in control of thyroid stimulating hormone and prolactin release, thyrotropin releasing hormone has a wider distribution in tissues of the nervous system, where it may act as a neurotransmitter. For instance, an injection of thyrotropin releasing hormone has effects on the arousal and feeding centers of the brain, causing wakefulness and loss of appetite. Now let us have a look at corticotropin releasing hormone. Corticotropin releasing hormone is secreted by the paraventricular nucleus of the hypothalamus, which among other functions releases hormones. Corticotropin releasing hormone has several important actions. Its main role in the body is as the central driver of the stress hormone system, known as hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Corticotropin releasing hormone is given this name because it causes release of adrenocorticotropic hormone from the pituitary gland. Adrenocorticotropic hormone in turn travels in the bloodstream to the adrenal glands, where it causes the secretion of the stress hormone cortisol. Corticotropin releasing hormone also acts on many other areas within the brain, where it suppresses appetite, increases anxiety, and improves memory and selective attention. Together, these effects coordinate behavior to develop and fine-tune the body's response to a stressful experience. Corticotropin releasing hormone is also produced throughout pregnancy in increasing amounts by the fetus and the placenta, with the effects of increasing cortisol. Ultimately, it is the high levels of corticotropin releasing hormone that, along with other hormones, are thought to start labor. Finally, in smaller quantities, corticotropin releasing hormone is also made by certain white blood cells where it stimulates swelling or tenderness known as inflammation, particularly of the gut. Now let us have a look at growth hormone releasing hormone, abbreviated as GHRH. It is also known as somatokinin and is a releasing hormone of growth hormone. It is a 44 amino acid peptide hormone produced in the arcuate nucleus of hypothalamus. Growth hormone releasing hormone stimulates growth hormone production and release by binding to the growth hormone releasing hormone receptor on cells in the anterior pituitary. Now let's have a look at somatostatin. It is also known as growth hormone inhibiting hormone, abbreviated as GHIH, and is a peptide hormone that regulates the endocrine system and affects neurotransmission and cell proliferation through interaction with G protein coupled somatostatin receptors and inhibition of the release of numerous secondary hormones. Somatostatin inhibits insulin and glucagon secretion. Now let's have a look at another hormone, gonadotropin releasing hormone, abbreviated as GnRH. It is a releasing hormone responsible for the release of follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone from the anterior pituitary. GnRH is a tropic peptide hormone synthesized and released from GnRH neurons within the hypothalamus. The peptide belongs to gonadotropin releasing hormone family. It constitutes the initial step in the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis. The portal blood carries the GnRH to the pituitary gland, which contains the gonadotrope cells, where the GnRH activates its own receptor, gonadotropin releasing hormone receptor, which is a 7-transmembrane G protein coupled receptor that stimulates the beta isoform of phosphoinositide phospholipase C, which goes on to mobilize calcium and protein kinase C. This results in the activation of proteins involved in the synthesis and secretion of the gonadotropin, luteinizing hormone, and follicle stimulating hormone. Now let's have a look at another hormone, dopamine. It is an organic chemical of the catecholamine and phenethylamine families. It functions both as a hormone and a neurotransmitter and plays several important roles in the brain and body. It is an amine synthesized by removing a carboxyl group from a molecule of its precursor chemical L-DOPA, which is synthesized in the brain and kidneys. Dopamine is also synthesized in plants and most animals. In the brain, dopamine functions as a neurotransmitter, a chemical released by neurons or nerve cells to send signals to other nerve cells. The brain includes several distinct dopamine pathways, one of which plays a major role in the motivational component of reward motivated behavior. The anticipation of most types of rewards increases the level of dopamine in the brain. and many addictive drugs increase dopamine release or blocks its reuptake into neurons following release. Now let's have a look at hormones of adrenal medulla. Adrenomedullary hormones are catecholamines secreted from adrenal medulla by chromaffin cells, neurosecretory cells connected to the central nervous system. The synthesis, storage in chromaffin cells and release of catecholamines is co-regulated by synaptic input from their respective presynaptic sympathetic neurons, as well as hormonal and local inputs. The adrenomedullary hormones are epinephrine, norepinephrine, and dopamine. Now let's have a look at enteric neurohormones. Enterochromaffin cells in the epithelia lining the lumen of the digestive tract secrete serotonin, while enterochromaffin-like cells lining the stomach secrete histamine. Their synthesis, storage, and release of hormones is co-regulated by hormonal, local, and nervous inputs. With that, we end today's lecture. Hope you have understood it well. Thank you and goodbye.